Would you believe there is a country like this on Earth? About a quarter of this country is below sea level. Its lowest point is about 7 meters below sea level. If one day the pumps stop, the dams fail, and the water management system malfunctions, some parts of this country could become uninhabitable within days. Yes, we are talking about the Netherlands. The history of the Netherlands is, in many ways, the story of a 2,000-year struggle against water. Today, we will examine the battle this country has fought against nature since its beginning, and one of the most advanced water management systems in the world. The Netherlands is a vast delta where the Rhine, Meuse, and Scheldt rivers reach the North Sea. With soft ground, low elevation, and a constant risk of flooding, this region did not look like an ideal place to build a great civilization. When the so-called barbarian peoples reached this unstable delta, they could not have imagined that these lands would one day become home to one of the most prosperous societies in the world. From ancient times onward, river floods and sea floods became the fate of the communities living on this land. While many civilizations built armies to protect themselves from other countries, the Dutch faced a very different threat: the sea. Think of it this way: about 26% of the Netherlands lies below sea level. The lowest point in the country is the Zuidplaspolder near Rotterdam. It sits about 6.7 meters below the level of the North Sea. Modern Netherlands survives today thanks to one of the most detailed and sophisticated water management systems ever built by humankind. The total length of the country's dikes, embankments, canals, and water barriers reaches tens of thousands of kilometers. This system does not only protect the coast, it also manages rainwater, river floods, groundwater, and storm surges coming in from the sea. To understand the modern, carefully planned Netherlands of today, we first need to look at the historical process behind it. Unable to stop floods and storm surges, people first tried to lift their homes above the water. They built their villages on artificial mounds. These mounds were made by hand, with soil, clay, and mud carried basket by basket. In the north of the Netherlands, these structures were called terps. Hundreds of these old settlement mounds have survived to the present day. Over time, the Dutch began to develop a bigger solution instead of simply taking refuge on higher mounds. They started surrounding entire pieces of land with dikes. This is how the first embankments, dikes, and dam systems emerged. The management of these structures helped form one of the foundations of modern Dutch democracy, the water boards. The elected bodies within these boards inspected the dikes, collected taxes for maintenance, and could require everyone, from peasants to nobles, to fulfill their duties in water defense. These water boards still exist today and are considered among the oldest democratic institutions in the Netherlands. In the Dutch struggle against the sea and nature, the role of windmills must also be remembered. For a long time, the Dutch relied on windmills to drain water from flood-prone areas. In the 17th century, the use of windmills reached its peak. More than 10,000 windmills were operating across the country at the same time. These mills lifted water from one drainage level to another through a stepped system, then discharged it through the surrounding canals. At the center of this system was a new concept: the polder. A polder is a low-lying piece of land reclaimed from the sea, a lake, a marsh, or a river floodplain. It is enclosed by dikes, and its water level is artificially controlled by canals, sluices, and pumps. But windmills had one very important limitation. When the wind stopped, they stopped too. Water, however, never stops. That is why the Netherlands needed a stronger system, one that could keep working continuously against the water. By the 19th century, steam-powered pumping stations opened a new era in Dutch water management. One of the most striking examples was the drainage of Haarlemmermeer, a lake located between Amsterdam, Haarlem, and Leiden. For centuries, this large lake had threatened the surrounding villages. Driven by wind and storms, it eroded its shores and became increasingly dangerous. In 1849, 3 giant steam pumping stations, Leekwater, Crucius, and London, began working to empty the lake. After roughly 3 years of pumping, Haarlemmermeer was drained in 1852. More than 18,000 hectares of new land were gained. Today, the town of Hoofddorp and Amsterdam Schiphol Airport stand on this former lakebed. But the modern Dutch approach to water defense was born out of disaster. On the night between January 31st and February 1st, 1953, a severe North Sea storm combined with high tide. After midnight, the coastal defenses in the southwest of the Netherlands began to fail. In the freezing cold, seawater, and darkness of night, 1,836 people lost their lives. Around 200,000 hectares of land were flooded. Infrastructure, farmland, and homes suffered severe damage. But even more importantly, the Dutch, who had believed their dikes were sufficient, experienced a deep psychological shock. This disaster changed the way the Netherlands thought about flooding and pushed the country into a new era of engineering. The Delta Plan. Under the Delta Plan, engineers would not simply repair and raise the existing dike network. Instead, they would control the sea arms and estuaries of the southwestern delta with giant dams, locks, and storm surge barriers. The goal was to shorten the complex coastline that had to be defended and to build a stronger system against storm surges coming from the open sea. Giant dams, locks, barriers, and embankments were built over many years. Within this plan, two structures stood out in particular. The first was the Oosterschelde Barrier. At first, engineers considered building a fixed dam here that would completely close off the sea arm and prevent storm surges from entering. But this solution came with a heavy cost. A fixed dam would stop the tidal movement in the Oosterschelde, seriously damaging mussels, oysters, fisheries, and the natural life of the region. So engineers developed a more expensive but more balanced solution: a movable storm surge barrier. The Oosterschelde Barrier, about 9 kilometers long, consists of 65 massive concrete piers and 62 movable steel gates placed between them. The heaviest of these concrete piers weighed up to 18,000 tons. In other words, each one was like a giant concrete tower placed in the middle of the sea. Construction began in 1976 and lasted about 10 years. The Oosterschelde Barrier was completed in 1986 and officially opened on October 4, 1986. The logic of the Oosterschelde Barrier, which has served the Netherlands for nearly 40 years, is clear. Under normal conditions, the steel gates remain open. Seawater can flow in and out, and the tides and marine life continue. But when a major storm surge is expected, the gates are lowered from a central control system, and the Oosterschelde is closed off. It takes about 75 minutes for all the gates to close. The construction of this structure was an engineering operation in itself. An artificial work island called Neeltje Jans was used in the middle of open water. The huge concrete piers were produced there, then carried by special vessels and placed on the seabed with extreme precision. Because the challenge was not just to build huge concrete pieces, it was to position structures weighing up to 18,000 tons in the right place, in the middle of currents and tides. The second iconic structure of the Delta Works is the Maeslantkering Storm Surge Barrier, which protects Rotterdam, one of Europe's largest ports, and the Zuid-Holland region. A conventional dam was not possible here because the Nieuwe Waterweg had to remain open for the enormous cargo ships heading to the port of Rotterdam. So engineers developed a movable solution: 2 giant steel gates that normally wait inside docks on the riverbanks. Imagine this: 2 gates, each on the scale of the Eiffel Tower, made of hollow steel arms, waiting on massive pivot points on both sides of the Nieuwe Waterweg. When a storm surge threatens the coast, a computer system closes these arms across the waterway. Once the gates are in position, they fill with water and gain the weight needed to resist the pressure of the sea. When the system is activated, Rotterdam is temporarily isolated from the sea. This structure is considered one of the largest movable flood defense structures in the world that can close automatically without human intervention. In the country's reclaimed lands, traces of the past still emerge today. During the creation of the Flevoland polders, hundreds of shipwrecks were found on the old seabed of the Zuiderzee. Among them were fishing boats, cargo vessels, and trading ships. In the Netherlands today, you may not even need to be an archaeologist to find a historic maritime relic. In Flevoland, some farmers come across wooden pieces from old ships while plowing their fields. Because Flevoland is the youngest province of the Netherlands, and much of it was reclaimed from seabed that once lay beneath the waters of the Zuiderzee. Today, people farm on that land. Roads are used, cities have been built, and tulip fields stretch across the landscape. In the last quarter century, Dutch engineers accepted another important truth. It was impossible to stop water forever with ever higher dikes alone. So they developed a new approach. Instead of fighting water, they would give it controlled space. Under the Room for the River program, some dikes were moved back from the river, floodplains were widened, side channels were opened, and some areas were turned into controlled flood zones. The aim was to create safe spaces where rivers could spread during high water periods without pushing into cities. A similar logic was also applied inside cities. In Rotterdam, squares and parks were built that can turn into temporary water storage areas during heavy rainfall. On normal days, these places function as public spaces. During extreme rainfall, they hold water and reduce pressure on the sewer system and urban infrastructure. The logic behind all these projects was simple. To keep a city from being dragged into disaster, controlled space for water had to be created in advance. When necessary, a field, a park, or a square would absorb the water, while city centers would remain protected. One of the most modern answers to the question, why isn't the Netherlands underwater, is the sand motor project. With the sand motor, the Dutch turned the classic logic of coastal protection upside down. Normally, eroding beaches are replenished with sand at regular intervals. In this project, however, a massive volume of sand was placed on the coast in a single operation. Over the years, wind waves and sea currents would naturally spread that sand along the shoreline, allowing the beach and dunes to nourish themselves. In other words, the Netherlands did not build a new wall against nature here. It calculated the movement of nature and made it part of coastal defense. When you look at some of the tulip fields, farmlands, and modern settlements in the Netherlands today, it is remarkable to realize that not so many generations ago, some of these areas were covered by water. Yes, the Netherlands is not a country left to its natural borders. It is a country kept standing largely through engineering, maintenance, and continuous water management. Across the country, thousands of pumps, canals, dikes, and control structures work together. This system has to operate without interruption. If the system fails, tulip fields that look like paradise gardens, flat plains, and some settlements could begin to flood within days. Some parts of the Netherlands could start moving back toward their natural map of 1,000 years ago. The survival of the Netherlands depends on a system that must keep moving, like the pedals of a bicycle. After centuries of struggle against floods and water disasters, Dutch builders, dike keepers, and engineers now share this experience with the world. Dutch expertise in this field is extremely valuable in the modern world. Many countries and cities facing the sea and flood risk, including New York, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Jakarta, and Venice, benefit from centuries of Dutch experience. What the Netherlands has built over the centuries is not just a system of dikes, pumps, and barriers. It is also a civilization and a way of life. From deserted marshes, soft ground deltas, and a constant threat of flooding, one of the world's most prosperous and powerful countries emerged. If this story stretching from the Roman era to today caught your attention, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.